This morning, notorious gang rapist Mohammed Skaff walks out of jail on parole after a series of crimes that shocked the nation. Former New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian seen in public for the first time since her shock resignation as the state's Nationals choose their new leader. Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews now reportedly the subject of a corruption inquiry over his dealings with the Firefighters Union. And a last-minute deal with England's cricketers to ensure the Ashes will go ahead this summer.
This is 7 News with Ann Sanders.
Good morning. One of Australia's most notorious criminals has been released from prison on parole this morning. Mohammed Skaff was a member of a rape gang that terrorised young women in Sydney in the year 2000. Marley Hogan is outside Sydney's Long Bay Jail. Marley, Mohammed Skaff has been behind bars for almost 21 years.
Well, and he's now a 38-year-old man, and Mohammed Skaff, the convicted rapist, left prison this morning. He walked out of Long Bay Jail to start his parole period. It comes with some of the strictest conditions in the state. 24-hour electronic monitoring, daily schedules, ongoing psychological intervention, and he cannot contact his victims or co-offenders. Back in 2000, at age 17, Mohammed Skaff was part of a gang led by his brother Bilal, who gang raped at least 6 women. He was sentenced to 32 years in jail. That was reduced on appeal to 22, and he has applied for parole 3 times before and been denied, but on this 4th attempt, it was granted. The parole authority has defended its decision, arguing that to wait to the end of his sentence would see him released back into society with no supervision at all. Releasing him early on parole gives the authorities the opportunity to monitor him, to watch his behaviour, and if he breaks any of his parole conditions, he will be sent back to jail. Anne?
Marley Hogan with that breaking news. Thank you very much, Marley. A day after the New South Wales Liberal Party voted in a new Premier, Dominic Perrottet, former leader Gladys Berejiklian has emerged for the first time since she resigned on Friday. Alex Hart is at the former Premier's electoral office. Good morning, Alex. What did she have to say this morning?
Good morning, Anne. The former Premier has kept a very low profile since her shock resignation last Friday. She hasn't been seen publicly until this morning. She arrived here a short time ago at her electorate office in Willoughby on Sydney's North Shore with one of her federal Liberal colleagues, Trent Zimmerman, the member for North Sydney. She went inside to thank her long-serving staff and have a few words with them before coming outside to read some of the messages that have been left here over the past few days and also collect some of the flowers. Since we've been here, many people stopping by to take photos, to leave further messages of support and flowers as well. Gladys Berejiklian did take a few questions before heading inside. Let's hear some of what she had to say.
I just want to say again a big thank you to everybody. It's been an enormous comfort to know people care, and I want the community to get behind Premier Perrottet, as I know they will. He will be an outstanding leader, and at this important time we need everybody to follow the Premier's words and make sure that we come out of this lockdown as safely as possible.
Alex, also another big vote today. The National Party has chosen its new leader.
Yes, that's right, Anne. Another ballot in State Parliament this morning to elect the replacement of John Barilaro as the New South Wales Nationals leader. And the Regional Roads Minister and Bathurst MP Paul Toole has won that position comprehensively. He beat the only other contender, the Water Minister Melinda Pavey, 15 votes to 3 in that ballot this morning. The Mental Health Minister, Bronnie Taylor, elected unopposed as Deputy. Later today, Mr Toole will be sworn in as the state's next Deputy Premier, completing that all-new leadership team for the New South Wales government, alongside, of course, the new Premier, Dominic Perrottet, who himself won the leadership ballot for the Liberal Party comprehensively yesterday, 13 votes to 5. He was later sworn in at Government House yesterday afternoon, alongside just a few ministers, the new Treasurer, Matt Keane, also the Health Minister, Brad Hazzard, and the new Deputy Liberal leader, Stu Ayres, in a number of portfolios. Let's hear from Paul Toole, the man who's about to become the state's new Deputy Premier, speaking a short time ago.
Look, I'm really pleased to be elected as the leader of the New South Wales Nationals this morning. I'll have more to say very shortly, but I'll tell you what, I'm looking forward to getting back to work.
So Mr Toole will take on the regional New South Wales ministry from John Barilaro, and talk that he may also take on the transport portfolio that was vacated by Andrew Constance over the weekend. And
Alex Hart reporting. Thank you, Alex. To some breaking news, there are reports this morning Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews is under investigation by Victoria's anti-corruption watchdog. Melina Saris is live in our Melbourne newsroom. Melina, this is all to do with the Firefighters Union.
Yes, good morning, Anne. The Premier spoke about these allegations a short time ago as he headed into Parliament this morning. Daniel Andrews was asked whether the reports about him being examined by the state's anti-corruption watchdog IBAC were accurate. He told reporters if they want to know what IBAC is doing, they need to speak to IBAC directly. The Premier maintains he behaves appropriately at all times and is focused on keeping the community safe and working on the state's roadmap for reopening. The Age is reporting that IBAC has been examining the conduct of the Premier and a senior public servant over their role in the controversial deals which benefited the Firefighters Union and its boss Peter Marshall. IBAC has been investigating dealings with the United Firefighters Union since 2019, but the watchdog's scrutiny of the Premier's conduct has not been confirmed.
If you want to know, in all contexts, if you want to know what IBAC is doing and who they're talking to and what they're talking to them about, then you can go, as you must, go and talk to them. They're the only people who can answer those questions.
Opposition leader Matthew Guy has called on the Premier to stand down during the investigation into the government and the fire service. Daniel Andrews says that will absolutely not be happening. Anne?
Melina Saris in Melbourne. Thank you, Melina. 11 people have died in Victoria, making it the deadliest day of the current COVID outbreak. The state recorded 1,420 new cases, the 7th day in a row of over 1,000 cases. 4 VCE students were found to be positive while sitting yesterday's general assessment test, forcing classmates into isolation. The lockdown in the city of La Trobe, sparked by AFL Grand Final weekend parties, has now ended. And the City of Melbourne is making vaccination mandatory for entry into all council buildings, including libraries and town halls. New South Wales has seen a significant boost in the number of vaccines administered as we push towards Freedom Day. To reporter Amelia Brace. Hi there, Amelia. Another drop in case numbers today.
Yeah, that's right. We've actually dropped below 600 cases for the first time in a couple of months. 594 were reported today. That is 14 less than yesterday, but more people came forward and got tested. So good news all round on that front. Unfortunately, not when it comes to our number of deaths. 10 people with COVID-19 lost their lives, including someone who was just in their 40s.
On behalf of New South Wales Health, I extend my sincere condolences to the loved ones, the families, the friends of these 10 people whose deaths we are sadly reporting today.
And of course, there is one number that everyone in New South Wales is keeping their eye on today, that 70% double dose rate that you mentioned, and we are ever so close to getting there. After a long weekend lull, we had a record day of vaccinations yesterday. I'm told we need just 58,000 people to come forward and get a jab today to reach that target, and that is well below our daily average, so it's absolutely within reach. Of course, if we do achieve it today, it won't actually be reported until tomorrow, but all that matters, Anne, is that it happens before Monday, with Freedom Day now locked and loaded.
Well, that is some good news. Amelia Brace reporting. Thanks, Amelia. Queensland has again avoided lockdown, with the Sunshine State recording no new community cases of COVID-19. It comes after 2 cases on Tuesday and fears a woman had been infectious in the community.
This is unbelievable. This is great effort from everyone in Queensland doing the right thing.
67.7% of Queenslanders have had their first dose of a vaccine and more than 48% are fully vaccinated. Australia is on the verge of a major jobs boom. An economic rebound is predicted as COVID restrictions start to ease. Our political reporter Taylor Aiken is live in Canberra. Good morning, Taylor. It's welcome news for everyone out of work.
It sure is, Anne, with the jobs market set for a bounce back following prolonged lockdowns in New South Wales, Victoria and the ACT. Employers are set to go on a hiring blitz ahead of a wave of spending from consumers freed from lockdowns, but also as retailers approach Christmas. But with states preparing to reopen, there are fears some businesses will be left understaffed and underprepared, with demand surging for services such as hairdressers, hospitality and within the tourism sector. New figures from job ad site Seek showing job ads are up by 6% across the country. In New South Wales, it has jumped 20% in the last month, with most ads in hospitality and retail. Ads in other states also rose slightly, with the exception of Victoria, which recorded a fall of 2.6%. But jobs returning does rely heavily on vaccination rates continuing to climb, with health officials now looking at ways to target specific areas where vaccination rates are lagging.
There are now some states that are getting ahead of others and some that are going much slower. So we still think that offering choice and convenience and explaining to people that vaccination is the best way to either get our freedoms back or to keep the freedoms that we've got.
Data released slightly early today shows that Australia has reached the 80% first dose vaccination milestone. That is a national figure, with more than 350,000 people coming forward to get a jab yesterday. That is a new daily record. Anne?
Taylor Aiken in Canberra. Thank you, Taylor. Coming up next in 7 News, the changes to home loans to take the heat out of the housing market, and the Russians get the jump on Tom Cruise, beating him into space. A burst water main has sent thousands of litres of water down a Sydney street overnight. Firefighters were called to Maud Street in Fairfield West and found a pipe had burst under the road. The water was shut off after half an hour and the road closed. Extensive repairs are now needed. The so-called Facebook whistleblower has accused her old employer of moral bankruptcy in a highly charged appearance before a US Senate committee, saying it deceives users and spreads extreme messages. Here's our US correspondent, Tim Lester.
It's the David and Goliath battle shaking the world's biggest social media company, Facebook versus ex-employee Frances Haugen. This morning, US senators applauded the latter as they questioned her at a hearing on Capitol Hill.
Facebook is stuck in a feedback loop that they cannot get out of.
37, Harvard-educated, a data specialist. In May, Frances Haugen not only quit Facebook, she took with her thousands of internal documents.
They have been hiding this information because they feel trapped, right?
Evidence suggesting the company only tackles a tiny fraction of violent posts, as well how posts on Facebook's Instagram increase body image fears among teenage girls, problems she claims Facebook won't address because it wants to protect profits.
And that's what moral bankruptcy is.
And big tech now faces that big tobacco jaw-dropping moment of truth.
The committee chair taking to task Facebook's founder and CEO for posting this sailing video as the fuss around his company unfolded.
Mark Zuckerberg ought to be looking at himself in the mirror.
Mark holds a very unique role in the tech industry in that he holds over 55% of all the voting shares for Facebook. There are no similarly powerful companies that are as unilaterally controlled. And in the end, the buck stops with Mark.
The CEO had another Facebook trauma on his mind today, apologising for yesterday's 6-hour global outage. Facebook services now back from darkness as whistleblower revelations explode around the company.
A Russian actress and film crew have blasted into space on a mission to make the first movie in orbit. They'll begin filming on the International Space Station, beating Tom Cruise in a race to launch cinema in outer space. Hugh Whitfeld reports.
This is a case of Russia 1, Tom Cruise 0. An all-Russian crew aboard a Russian rocket blasting off from the Russian base in Kazakhstan. Among the cosmonauts on board, actress Yulia Peresild and director Kim Shapenko. They're going to be filming the first ever movie not shot about space, because there's been plenty of them using special effects down here on Earth, but shot in space. Peresild playing a cardiac surgeon who needs to fly up to treat an astronaut or cosmonaut on the International Space Station. It's being seen as very much a patriotic victory for the Russians, but it's not their idea. They scrambled all this together, including the script, when they heard that Tom Cruise, Elon Musk and NASA were planning on filming a movie themselves up on the International Space Station too. The Russian spacecraft docking 3 hours after takeoff. It follows 3 months of training to turn the crew into cosmonauts. On this occasion, Tom Cruise and his crew have been beaten. He won't be flying up, it seems, until next year.
Thanks, Hugh. There are changes happening to dampen the skyrocketing house prices in Sydney and Melbourne. Let's bring in Network Finance Editor Gemma Acton. Gemma, good morning. The banking regulator is stepping in.
Good morning, Anne. Yes, this was widely flagged last week as likely to happen before Christmas, but APRA has surprised some by stepping in this morning. Now, it's ordered banks to increase the serviceability ratio on new home loans. And so what that means is when you take out a home loan, the bank runs a test where it adds 2.5% to your mortgage rate to check that you could still make your repayments even if interest rates increased. Now, that 2.5% test buffer will be increased to 3%. Analysts say that of all the measures that APRA could have taken to slow down home loan growth and indeed house price growth, this is the weakest. APRA itself admitted this change would have a fairly modest impact, likely to reduce the amount a buyer can borrow by around 5%. And now let's take a quick look at the markets. The ASX 200 has given up most of its early gains to now be close to flat, while the Aussie dollar pushed higher overnight.
Gemma Acton reporting. Thank you very much, Gemma. Next in 7 News, we'll have sport, including one of the NRL's all-time greats set to announce his retirement. And the Ashes get the green light. England agreed to tour down under this summer. Sport now, and this summer's Ashes series has been saved after crisis talks between the Australia and English cricket boards last night. England captain Joe Root has reportedly agreed to lead his men on their tour down under after being satisfied by the quarantine and living conditions put forward by Cricket Australia. The deal will be signed off later in the week, with the tourists expected to send a near full-strength squad.
Having families around, especially in a pandemic, guys are on the road for a lot longer than what tours used to go when you're adding on quarantine at the start and potentially at the end, depending where you're coming and going. So, I sympathise fully with them.
The Ashes starts on December 8 at the Gabba. Nathan Coulter-Nile may have missed Australia's T20 World Cup squad, but he put on a show for the Mumbai Indians in the IPL. The 33-year-old tore through Rajasthan's lineup, taking 4 for 14 in a man-of-the-match display.
Another one hits the stumps. It's been the target so far today here at Sharjah.
Mumbai cruised to an 8-wicket victory. Geelong has made some early moves off the field in the AFL trade period. Retried Blues great Eddie Betts is joining the Cats in a coaching capacity, revamping their football department under Chris Scott. It comes as the club confirmed interest in Tyson Stengel, who sat out this year at Adelaide after a host of off-field dramas. Unwanted Saints midfielder Luke Dunstan is expected to join Melbourne on a 2-year deal. As reported first on 7 News, NRL legend Benji Marshall will announce his retirement today. After 19 seasons and 346 games across 4 clubs, the 36-year-old will call it a day following the Rabbitohs' grand final defeat to the Panthers. Marshall was the linchpin in the West Tigers' 2005 premiership team. He turned down offers to continue his career elsewhere next season. Former NRL star Paul Gallen is turning heads in his new career as a boxer. Undefeated heavyweight world champion Tyson Fury revealed he's been following the Sharks legend's career and was impressed with his gutsy performance against Justice Hooney in June.
May I say, Paul Gallen's very gutsy. He's got some balls on him. Credit to him.
The Gypsy King takes on the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder for a 3rd time in Nevada on Sunday, with his world title belt on the line. Coming up next in 7's Morning News, we'll have the national weather forecast for you. To the national weather now, and a trough over the Northern Territory and South Australia is bringing a few showers. It's mainly fine around the rest of the country. Looking at the national capital, sunny and 27 in Brisbane today. A sunny one for Sydney, a top of 24. Canberra sunny and 19. Melbourne a late shower, a top of 22 degrees. Hobart rain and 18. Adelaide cloudy 22. Perth mostly sunny and 19. And for Darwin, sunny day and 34. And that's 7 News to Now. We'll keep you up to date throughout the day. Our next major bulletin is at 4 p.m. I'm Ann Sanders. Thanks for your company. Have a lovely day. Bye for now.